Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. Wanted to use this video to talk about some good news that the US and, well, frankly, the rest of the world has been, for the most part, has been experiencing with regards to COVID, and that is that the amount of vaccinations have surged, um, which has been accompanied both not necessarily because of the vaccines per se, but it has come at the same time as COVID cases nationally have plunged. So this here is Bloomberg's interactive COVID-19 vaccine tracker. And, one of the big challenges right at the start of the, announcement of the vaccines back in December, and the rollout was that, vaccines were being delivered, but there was a difficulty getting those shots actually into the arms of people. And as you can see, like in terms of the rolling averages, and right at the end of the year, we were having roughly like 270, 200, yeah, roughly 275 vaccines or so a day, which then by the time of Joe Biden's inauguration had hit, 1.5 million that day, 900,000 average. And since then has, increased to about 1.6 million a day, which my prediction, and not necessarily my prediction, but I would expect that give it another week as the effect of last week's deep freeze that disrupted supply chains across the United States because of the power outages and cold weather and snowstorms. I think that we're going to probably hit around 2 million rolling daily average by the end of this coming week. And probably it wouldn't surprise me if by the end of March, we're seeing a, sustained maybe 2 to 2.5 million a day, which will, get us on track to getting a large portion of the population vaccinated here in the US by the start of the summer. Um, and, like when you take a look at my native New Hampshire, roughly 16% of the population has at least one shot, 7% are fully vaccinated. And, that's more or less like in the case of New Hampshire or, Illinois, where I'm currently at, is kind of lagging in this regard. But, still 15.4% receives a shot, 6% fully vaccinated. And, when you look at the, current rate of vaccination, it's roughly 73 million doses total administered, 22 doses per 100 people. About 14.6% has received at least one dose, 7.1% has received two doses. And one of the reasons why, like, I think that we have seen this sharp fall is that, well, one, you have like the vaccinations coming online, and you combine that with, potentially a rise in people adhering to masking regulations, lockdowns, which surged around, as COVID got increasingly bad this past fall, and then into the winter around, Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays and New Year's. We had this peak right during the first, second week of January, and since then we have, seen cases plummet. And I think that that's a combination of the causes I just mentioned, combined with the vaccine rollout, combined with the fact that despite there being, reported cases of 28.5 million, the CDC actually estimates that by the end of December, between February and December 2020, we had about 83.1 million total infections. My best guess is just like doing some quick, kind of just like eyeballing it with regards to the number of cases in January and February. In reality, we're probably closer to something like, 100 million people that have been infected total in the United States, or roughly, maybe 33% of the country now as we approach the end of February, which means that when you add those people combined with the people that are newly vaccinated, and granted, there's going to be some crossover between those two groups. It's quite possible that right now, as of this moment, we have roughly, you know, maybe 40% of the country that has some level of immunity, whether it's because they have received at least one vaccine or they had been infected with COVID at some point during this crisis, or a combination of the two. So I think it's both very sad news, and it just shows how bad this pandemic has been for the United States and, for the matter, the rest of the world. But it does provide some level of optimism that we may have roughly 40% of the country, maybe give or take 10%, that gets us close to the goal of, I believe the current goal is between 70 and 85% of the population vaccinated, or, realistically speaking, having immunity for us to get to that point of having herd immunity where COVID no longer spreads. And of course, all of this, I think good news of COVID cases, plummeting down to about, 75, 78,000 a day, which of course is still very high, but at the very least, it's not the horrible numbers we were seeing between, November, December, January, early February. So it is good news in that regard. But so we have the declining COVID numbers combined with the increase of vaccinations, and all at the same time, we are having, the COVID relief bill, which means that on the economic front, the economy is already projected to boom in Q1. They're currently estimating about 9.5% of Q1 growth by the GDP Now forecast from the Atlanta Fed. So it is good news that we will have, good economic growth, and that's without the without the COVID relief bill. It does factor in the effects from December's bill, but the the numbers that we'll see reported in late April, roughly, which I believe is when the Q1 report should come out, will reflect a very, pretty rapidly rebounding U.S. economy. And that's even with the lockdowns, even with, even without this $1.9 trillion of pandemic aid, which, as I've said in, my article last week and in some of these videos, I am personally not in support of it based on the, the current structure of it, the current provisions of it. For me, a major thing is the $350 billion of unrestricted aid to states and municipalities that can, it is partly because of to address budget shortfalls due to COVID. However, the budget shortfalls have been considerably less than predicted, and the $350 billion greatly exceeds the amount actually due to, either decreased revenues from COVID or increased expenditures due to COVID, which means that a lot of that money is going to be able to use to plug chronic budget deficits and, in the case of where I'm at right now, like Illinois and Chicago, give those local officials the ability to use some of that money to plug chronic public pension deficits that they've run, and without having to make any real reforms. And that's part of the reason why I oppose it. However, that's still not to say that, you approve $1.9 trillion of spending, even if only a small part of it is actually being outlaid in, Q1 or even Q2 for that matter. You're still going to have a huge economic effect, and that means that Q1 growth will probably get a slight boost from it, and definitely Q2, which again is already projected to be most likely even better than Q1 without this stimulus bill, as of course lockdowns fade and more of the population gets back to normal with the vaccinations and the decline in COVID rates. With this bill added on top of it, we're going to see a booming economy, which is great news, I would say. Although, there will be other types of consequences, whether we're talking about inflation or, misaligned incentives due to, as I was mentioning, the issue about the unrestricted state aid, but that can be a deeper topic for another time. So anyways, I just wanted to make this video to talk about a little bit of good news that I thought I should comment on, just because, especially in today's day and age with politics and some of the ridiculousness that I've seen at CPAC 2021, unfortunately this weekend, I do think it's good to point out some good news that the country is, experiencing now, and should hopefully only get better in the coming weeks and months, even as we face new risks due to like COVID variants and whatnot. So anyways, here's some good news for this weekend. Hope you're all doing well. And thanks again for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and always happy to make a video based on whatever you want me to create. Have a good one. Stay safe, stay healthy,